what you actually find is that in reality, confidence, the action, will always precede confidence, the feeling. And that's one of the main lessons we have inside of our program, is to really drill that down, because it means you have to take action even when you don't feel confident. And then when you look back, you'll have the clarity and the confidence.
Anyway, welcome to this week's episode of Leadership Soundbites with Michelle, my very special guest, Riley. And Riley, McGhee, I didn't even ask.
Yep, you got it.
Okay. I'm looking, I go, there's an H in there. And so I didn't even ask. Okay, Riley McGhee. So Riley's a number of things, very low key on what they are. Co-founder, pulled the name out of him. Leverage Accelerators is what they go by. Startup CEO, podcast, Change Champions, again, had to ask the name. And so it's interesting what you do, because you're very, I'm going to say, unassuming. And so you're not this intense, like in your face human that goes, you have to have this. And I joked with you, but I'm serious. It causes people to lean in and go, so what is it about you, Riley? What is going on? What's really the story? Which I think is a great marketing kind of thing.
I don't think anyone has told me that before, because I'm almost always known as the question guy everywhere I go. I definitely have the curiosity bug, but yeah, from a marketing perspective, I think maybe a nugget I'll just drop for anyone listening about sales and marketing stuff. One thing I have tried to get, I've definitely struggled with, is the whole word vomit thing.
Yeah.
And I think for most of us, it comes from helping play. Like you want to help people, you want to solve the problem, whatever the thing is. But when it comes to really just relationships in general, which if you're talking about sales or marketing, humans are definitely part of that. So I would still call it relationship building. Yeah, it's kind of, this might be a crude way to put it, but I think it is kind of like that cat and string thing that you've probably, like a cat with a ball of yarn.
Yeah,
anything. You can't give them the whole ball, or it's too much. And it's not even so much about like trying to get them to play with the string, so much as if you're there to be of service of someone, that's where the unassuming part comes in. You have to listen first. You can't just come in with an agenda and start shoving things down people's throats. It doesn't work so well.
That's interesting you say that, because, and I know you have a quote, and what comes to mind for me when you said that is for me, I tell people I don't lead with tools and templates.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to hear where you're at. I'm going to hear what you need, whether it's coaching or process improvement or change management, whatever it is. I've got tools and templates, got a ton of them, but there's no reason to overwhelm you. I can go, okay, I'm hearing what's going on. I'm going to go, this is the thing. Check this thing out. And so I agree with you. I think it that way it doesn't overwhelm people. And because there are consultants and people out there that go, here's all the stuff, fill all this stuff out. And I think part of it is, and I question, and if you're that person, don't take this as judgment, but I wonder, who are they doing it for? Is it for validation or justification of the value that they bring, or are they actually in service to the client? And I've found that people that are doing what they're doing, and we're there to help them in an aspect that they may not be doing as well in, they've got a full-time plus job doing what they're doing without having us add a bunch of stuff to it.
Yes. I think that's the tug of war.
There you go. Yeah.
Striking the balance. And I mean, 100%, I've been guilty of that. And also, even today, like I'll still dump information on our clients, but not, again, they're way further in the journey. It's like, hey, I've got this specific problem. Then I'll say, okay, here's the different, let's go through it. How's this angle? How about this angle? How about this approach? And that's when I think it's a little more appropriate. Honestly, if I'm honest, like probably even then, still worth taking the time to just take a step back before you jump in. It reminds me of, I know we have the quote in mind, but
you're fine,
another quote that comes up.
You do you. There's tons of quotes. You pick the quote.
Well, I remember this professor in grad school. I was getting my master's degree in athletic counseling, and I believe that specific class was about counseling, and not more sport performance psychology, which was the other, the degree. And he basically said, in this one class, he said, you have to be okay with the fact that you might be nothing more than a giant human placebo, which is like this odd mix of encouraging and reassuring that like you just, no matter how bad you are, in air quotes for people listening,
Yeah.
you, you know, just your presence alone is primarily what can make the difference. Also a little bit disheartening though, and might be a blow to your ego, if all you have to do is sit there. It doesn't even, all this education I paid for is not doing anything other than just, yeah, I'm being there and that's it. But I think it's that it's the listening, the observing, the curiosity, the unassuming. I mean, that's baked into hopefully for anyone that's experienced therapy or counseling or any of that, of the non-judgment, right, and coaching as well. So uh,
Yeah.
I think it's very much part of it, and just again goes back to just relationship building.
Well, and it's interesting. So tell people what you do, right?
Sure.
And so it may help because people are probably wondering, so is he a counselor? Is he? No.
No, yeah. So, yeah. So I'll connect the dots.
Yeah.
That was my degree, sports psychology. Always wanted to start a business, so I did that. Realized it's really hard to start a business. Didn't know anything about it, and eventually I saw this TED Talk called "What They Don't Tell You About Entrepreneurship," and
Oh,
it really
there you
struck a
go.
chord. So much so that I reached out to the guy. And long story short, there he became my first operations consulting client. So I was doing some mental performance
Oh, whoa,
contracting.
whoa. He became your client?
Yes, he became my client.
That's hilarious.
Um,
Okay.
Operations consulting, which I didn't know what that was, but he said
Yeah.
I was good at it. So this is where I moved from counseling to coaching to consulting. And then eventually, you mentioned the startup. I was the chief operating officer for
Okay.
the startup, and that wasn't his, but I, before I knew it, that became my full-time business. I was doing ops consulting for solopreneurs, coaches, speakers, authors, consultants. Um,
Yeah.
and when I left, so one of those clients said, "Hey, what would full-time look like?" And that's why I became the COO for that mental health startup. And then when I left that, I decided to come back to this space, the coaching and consulting space. Having about a decade of experience, I thought, you know, I could help other coaches and
Hmm.
consultants. I had an approach or method that I used to build a six-figure business, and then
Hmm.
my now business partner, who was actually also a former client, had done the same thing, and we just kind of arrived at the same space. And so, hence the Leverage Accelerator. We put together a program to help coaches and consultants essentially crack product market fit and create more sales opportunities, because that seems to be the one of the biggest struggles and challenges that
Hmm.
yeah, how do you articulate yourself and explain what you do
Hmm.
and make it clear
Hmm.
and compelling, and attach a sales process to it that you can actually
Yeah.
use.
Yeah. It's interesting because the question I got asked when I started coaching was, who's your avatar? Right? Who are your clients? Who's your audience? What's going on? And that is the
Yeah,
hardest freaking thing to
yeah,
articulate. Because and people go, well, if you don't have that, then you can't be everything to everyone. And I'm like, but I can help everyone. I mean, literally, unless you don't want to be coached or helped or improved, or I can help you.
yeah,
So
which is,
it's
that's
like,
not the reason for having the,
no,
yeah,
no. And so it was that thing. And then finally, and mind you, I'm four years in to this, on my own. And I woke up the other day and I went, I know. I mean, yeah, I can help everyone, but here's the area that it has the most legs and the most impact and the most, so it's everyone. And so, now I got to figure out what to do with that. But yeah, so it's trying to get clarity on that. And I don't know, Riley, it comes easily for people. It's like asking people, what do you want to do for a living? Well, I don't really know. Okay, great. What do you like to do? What do you like about what you currently do? What do you want more of? It's those kind of things.
I mean, I took a positive psychology class when I was 19 years old, and I remember them asking, you know, if like basically to write down like what your dreams and goals are. And I struggled with that so much. And eventually all I could come up with was, well, truthfully, my dreams and goals are to help other people reach their dreams and goals. And
Mhm.
it felt kind of like a cop-out answer, but reflecting back all these years later, like every step in my journey has been in alignment with that. Um,
Mhm.
and I think if that's truly what your mission is, I'll just call it. Um,
Mhm. I
it's
call it purpose.
purpose. Yeah, there's
I had someone ask me, what's your purpose? What's your life's purpose? And without thinking, I just said, "It's to help people."
yeah, and
And
the thing is it's hard to do that without that focus. Which
yeah,
actually, oh, I might even have this. Um,
but
so
a
this, for
pencil
anyone, I don't know how many people watch versus listen, but this is an extremely dull pencil, and I keep it dull on my desk for this
for
reason.
a reason? Is it
Yeah,
for construction or just to prove a point?
it's
Because
a,
I have one of those from the box knife that I sharpened it with, and so
it's like not a good.
serves its purpose, but it's very rudimentary.
Well, the purpose is to prove a point, which the irony is not lost on me on this pointless pencil. But um, so if I were to hold this up like above a piece of paper that was horizontal,
Mhm.
um,
Yeah.
and then I dropped it, I don't know, from 5 feet in the air, let's just say, it might mark the page or dent it or something, but that's pretty much it. If I took the same pencil and then I actually did sharpen it to a perfect point, I could repeat the
You have
experiment
one
with
of
the
those
same
too?
conditions. I have a mechanical one here, but then I never have to sharpen it. I always think that, hence the leverage. And I dropped it from the same height. It would break through the page. It would rip through it. And
Hmm.
so the point of that analogy there, which it does tap into physics, which is this is where you can start to get mixed woo woo
Scientific.
science and things.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's in terms of business, it's you only have so much time and energy. And so one of the big hurdles that we help our clients with is very much so from that mindset, time or energy management, prioritization, goal setting, like a lot of stuff that I honestly learned through sports psychology and working with high performers. And
Hmm.
so we take some of that methodology and some of those lessons and tools and things, and we apply it within our program. And that is one of the very first things we focus on, which is focus. And that really is the point of the niche, is because sure, you can help. I'm sure that you have heard you can help. If you try to help everyone, you help no one. And I
Hmm.
believe very strongly that people can do anything,
Hmm.
assuming able-bodied, able-minded, those kinds of things.
You just have to set your intention to it. I mean, if you
Yeah,
say you can do it, you can do it. If you say you can't do it, you can't do it. So yes,
not everything.
not everything at once. And
I just
that's
don't
the
think
thing
everything
is,
ever,
well, I
because
don't, but
you don't live
it
forever.
depends, so it depends on the context of everything, right? Because when you talk about everything, my everything could be limited to my list of things that I consider everything,
Yeah.
not everything in the universe, right?
So subjective for sure. But the
Yes,
thing is
yes.
that I've learned in entrepreneurship is that even that list, as I actually take the steps into it, it just you realize how much time and effort and energy these things take, and that's sharpening the pencil. But the cool thing about sharpening the pencil is it means that like by spreading my time and attention across less things, not only do I get more time and attention back, but I can also then reinvest it or lengthen the pencil, add more mass behind, more force uh,
Hmm.
into the equation, which then just makes my job even easier. And again, this
Hmm.
is why we think of the term leverage. And we were
Yeah.
joking, we don't spend a lot of time branding, but we do have intention behind the things that we have there.
We
Um,
don't really talk to people about it. People have to ask us what the name of it is, but there is thoughtful intention behind it.
yeah, maybe
What
eventually
do
we'll
you
have more
do with
branding.
people? Because I'm remembering back, you and I had the conversation. I think you reached out on LinkedIn. We connected, jumped on a call, and you made me laugh. I remember because the message that you sent was like this reach out of, hey, da 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 da, whatever it was. And it's like, and I noticed you have a podcast. I have a podcast too. And I'm like, this is what it reminded me of, honest to goodness, is Nate Bargatze is a comedian.
Yeah, I
And
know him.
he's freaking hilarious. Well, one of his things he was talking about is his mom. He sent his mom to this woman's house to pick up his daughter who was playing. Did you hear this one?
I can just
So
picture him. So I
yes.
haven't heard it, but
So
I can
so
picture it.
okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, so the mom goes to the house, only the mom goes to the wrong house. And
I
she
have heard
said,
this one.
I'm here to pick up my granddaughter. Of course, it was another grandmother, and she said, I have grandsons. And she's like, oh, so Nate's like, they spent 30 minutes talking at a house that wasn't even the right house because it was like, you have stuff, I have stuff too. So
Exactly.
that's literally where it took me when you go, you have a podcast? I have a podcast too. I'm
I
like,
do.
these two grandmothers go, you have kids? I have kids too.
It's almost like a, think back to kindergarten or whenever you made your first friend, where it's just like, you're five, me too. Let's be friends. Like that's at least for some little boys. It didn't take much. It's like we're both on the playground. Great. I actually some of my
Oh,
best
says here.
friends
This
who I
is so
met
cool.
when I was 6, 7 years old, and they're still like we grew up in the same neighborhood, and we're still friends today.
You're still connected. I love
Yeah.
it. Anyway, that's what I just had to share that story that made me laugh. So when you talk about, so say your quote if you don't mind, or you just want to go
Sure.
to the other quote. So
No,
yeah.
I mean, so the quote, I see it as relevant, but maybe other people wouldn't. Was the It's said a lot of different ways, but it's the journey brings us happiness, not the destination. And I think that my favorite way of hearing it said is, have you ever heard of the movie or the book, The Peaceful Warrior, or The Way of the
I have
Peaceful Warrior?
not. I have not.
It's based on a true story, but it's written by Dan Millman. There's a gymnast. He was in a motorcycle accident, said he'd never
Oh,
walk again, and then he went to the Olympics.
oh wow.
And so you can imagine adolescent Riley, who's into psychology and helping people and motivation and all that stuff. And so it struck a chord with me. And my dad had read that book, I think, in, I don't know, the 80s, whenever it first
Yeah.
written. Um, anyway, in the movie, Dan Millman, who has this wise Socrates-like mentor, they actually call him Soc for short, was challenged to basically think for himself. And one of the things that he came up with was that it is not the destination, but the journey that brings us happiness.
Mhm.
And there's a scene associated with it. But to me, like, it's very cliche. People say it a lot, but I think when you actually, I think there's many moments in life where people have that click, that light bulb moment where something that you've heard, maybe your mom told you a dozen times all throughout growing up, and then someone said it a different way or paired with this different experience, all of a sudden it just hits you different. And to
Mhm.
me, that quote or that lesson, when you can truly embody that, and that's what took me back to this business that I'm in now. Um,
Mhm.
it changes your world. I just think it makes such a huge difference in, because it's your world, everything that you touch,
Mhm.
that you do.
Um, the stuff that stands out for me when I think about myself or other people, because you coach people in the business world, I coach people, business, perfect, personal, whatever it may be, is that if you're chasing this thing, right? And we have a workshop around mindset matters, but if you're chasing this thing and you're waiting for the reward, the whatever, for the happy to come, you freaking missed everything along the way.
Mhm.
And by the time you get to that thing, happiness isn't there. It's not, it's like the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. That's not where it is. It's all those moments and those experiences along the way. Because I go back to one CEO, Teresa Fry, said, no, 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 this was Gina Temple. Sorry, I don't want to get the wrong leader. Is when you're present, be present. And it's in those moments. So if you embody, right, the happiness is the journey and not the destination, then the reality is I'm going to be present for these moments because these are the moments that matter, right? This is the stuff. And so I'm here in the room with you, but I'm not going to go, oh, I've got this later. I'm here. And I think that's the thing. And that's the thing where, read the message from you or the chat that we had before. And when we create those moments, because we're all freaking busy. So one of the phrases that I've used a lot that's helped me that I offer up to clients is there's plenty of time to get everything done that needs to be done. And when we own that and we accept it, because it's the truth, by the way, okay, then we settle in at a different level of clarity and presence and productivity and all the stuff. And I've literally watched clients after one session embody that because that's what was going on. It was like the white rabbit in Alice in Wonderland. I'm late, I'm late, I'm late. It's like, okay, and that's how this client had shown up. And all this other stuff had manifested because of it. And so I told him, I said, my gut is this is it. It's this time thing you've got going. He changed that. And I'm telling you, the next time we met 2 weeks later was a completely different human. And I'm like, what is happening? He goes, I'm calmer. He said, I'm not getting angry at stuff. I'm able to, I mean, I'm talking light switch.
Yeah.
So it is that, like you were talking about, but it's also how do I set it up to where I can be in those moments?
Yeah, it's is it Wayne Dyer? Dwayne? I always mix up that name. If you change the way you look at things, the things you look at
Yes.
tend to change, something like that.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's it. I mean, perspective, reframe, paradigm shifts. I think that's the power that's kind of baked in, and it's I think it's hard for people to access, and admittedly, like I'm not perfect. It's something that I work on all the time, and something we tell our clients too, especially when related to this kind of more mindset kind of stuff. We even have a mindset coach on staff for that reason, just to carve out space just for that. And I
Mm-hmm.
tell people to come back to those lessons and just repeat them
Mm-hmm.
because I said it's not necessarily that you're going to learn new information. It's more so, and I compare it to religion oftentimes. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
they've been saying the same stuff for a very long time, thousands of years. People still show up.
Yeah.
It's not, you're not going to church or service or mat or whatever, your beliefs are. It's not to learn something new
Mm-mm.
necessarily, but it's, we need to be reminded more than we need to be taught.
I think it's to hear it, right? It's to hear
Yeah.
it. It's to your point, it's like I may not have been ready to hear it. And it may land differently and depending on what stage of life you're at or what's going on. Recently, and I stumbled across or the internet, whatever world showed it to me. Joe Dispenza, Dr. Joe Dispenza. So he does a
Mhm.
lot of work around mind and the mind healing the body and the mind, and it goes along with the happiness thing. I got exposed to not Joe Dispenza, but Sean Aker, Happiness Advantage back. And it was through his TEDx that he did in
Mhm.
2011. It's a 12-minute TEDx. And I use it for leaders. I'll send it to leaders because he's got credibility and then we can unpack it. But it's like if I know everything about your external environment, I can only protect 10% of your future happiness. And so it's one of those things that it's like it's here. It doesn't matter where you're at, what's going on, anything else. It's inside that we make that shift to be able to step in. And then they've got neuroscience or science that backs the changes to the brain and because of neuroplasticity. So there are legitimate changes to the brain when we step in, like you were rehearsing things or whatever it may be. Your sports, from that psychology, they rehearse it, mentally rehearse it over and over and over again. They're readying the brain to do it. So you don't have this huge learning curve anymore. You're doing it. And those kind of things are powerful. So I think the same thing happens with leaders in business. We get scared. So, and a lot of times we throw out into the universe, the world, whoever, this is what I don't want this to happen. I don't want this, this, and this. And it's like, okay, so what do you want? Let's talk about that so that we're marching towards something that we actually want. What's your experience and what do you do with your clients?
I think the defining that is really important. I mean, unless you are going to give your life over to being, a Buddhist monk and just sell everything and give up everything.
I'm going to say no for me.
Yeah. And the thing is like, I say that a bit tongue in cheek, but like one of the things one of the like core principles we teach is about basically desire. And
Mhm.
that is baked into humans. It's baked into business. It's pretty fundamental, but it's a two-sided coin. And so if you essentially like if you think of like a negotiation table, the person who shows up that wants for less
Mm.
has the advantage,
Mhm.
has the leverage. And
Mm-hmm.
so if you have your needs met, then you don't, and you have, if your cup is filling over and you have more to
Mm-hmm.
give, it's this weird, and I don't mean to get into like capitalism and things like that, but it starts to like, like money attracts money and it just starts to
Mm-hmm.
compound. And
Yes.
so one very real way of doing that is like, well, if you have just less expenses, that's one way to do it. For most of us, that's not the ideal path. And so um, uh, I think even Jim Carrey, I think, has a quote on that. He's like, I wish everyone could have fame and have success so they could see that that's not, but he still also had to have fame and success first before,
Yeah.
before
Yes. Before you had
yeah.
that
So,
perspective and realization that, oh, wow, this isn't the thing. It's
yeah.
nice, but it's not the end all to be all. I still have problems too. Yeah.
So on a personal level, and again, this is why we have the mindset stuff first, is it's
Yeah.
like you still have to be clear on what your values are, what your goals are. Because even though the happiness, there's the internal component that we're talking, like it's in here, not
Mm-hmm.
out there, we were talking about. Um, I still think that in order to have it in here, you're like, we're not floating heads living in a bubble.
Mm-hmm.
There is an outside world. And I think part of what stirs that up in you is having some sort of pursuit. I think that's also baked into mankind, having something, a goal, something that you are working
Mm-hmm.
on or pursuing.
Oh, yeah. No, I agree.
And so I think we may have mentioned this before, but um, like off recording, offline. But my idea in a nutshell of financial freedom, and anyone I've talked to about it does not want to sit on a beach the rest of their life and actually sip a pina colada or whatever
No.
their choice is. They typically, it's more about working on what you want with who you want when you want, those
Mm-hmm.
kinds of things, which means it's not really freedom from anything, it's freedom to. But to is a verb. It's, well, maybe I'm not going to get into grammar, the grammar police here, but it is like, and you have to take an action. And so that's one of the fundamental just laws or rules of life. And there's a good I guess it's a documentary on
Mm-hmm.
Netflix, I believe. um Gosh, what is the name of it? It's Jonah Hill, and it's his psychologist or
Oh,
therapist, and he like records his own process and turns it into,
yeah.
it's this like crazy meta sort of thing. But one of the lessons that this psychologist shares is that, and there's a bunch of them, but the two that come to mind are, one is that pain is inevitable.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's just part of life. And so if we try to avoid that by not taking action, we're doubling down on the pain, because now you're also sacrificing the happiness. You're now making it
Mm-hmm.
outside of yourself. So you have to take action. You have to have some sort of pursuit. And then the second is it's this idea of pearls on the string, which is that you can only go in one direction in life. And so every time you have a new experience, it's just like adding another pearl to the string. And it's just next moment, next moment. Like being present is, it's that, what's that called when you draw on a pad and you like shuffle through it to make a motion picture?
Oh, yeah. The
Like
story
moment.
kind of things.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So those ideas combined, when you get a little bit more tactical into business, like you got to have some of that stuff, look in the right direction. But your business, if you think of that as an entity as well, it also needs direction. And if
Mm-hmm.
you're a solopreneur and you're wearing the marketing hat, if you don't have a niche or an avatar or some sort of focus,
Mm-hmm.
making your job a lot harder. It is, that's the reason, if you have marketing agencies or marketing
Yeah.
gurus or ad people, that's why they want you to have a clear avatar, is because if they're running ads for you, they need to have targeting demographics, or else they're not going to
Mm-hmm.
be able to get you an ROI. And
Yeah.
so, and that's a whole nother conversation, but um, yeah, if you're doing it for yourself, which is what we teach, because we don't have, we didn't ever do sales or marketing. We don't have a marketing agency. We're just
Yeah.
coaches and consultants that figured out how to do sales and marketing
Yeah.
in a genuine, authentic way to get your business off the ground and to get product market fit or to add a new offer or service. And
Yeah.
that is an important component for sure.
It's interesting because I describe what I'm doing now. There's a lot of swim lanes. A lot of
Yeah.
swim lanes. You and I talked. And that's one of the things too with me is to figure out, it's like, is there something to pause on? Is there something, and I haven't hit that yet, but I do getting clarity at least on the avatar for the coaching piece of it felt like a win for me. It's like, okay,
Yeah,
there's one thing.
for
And I
sure.
remember calling my daughter about it. It's like, okay, I've got some clarity. She goes, okay, good. And here's why, right? That I feel this way. And yeah. Um, I'm curious because I want to wrap up, but I'm curious, is there like that you could do in like a minute story of like a success story that you're like, this is the one that when I think about it, this is the one that's like it was really cool with a client?
Yeah, well, yeah, I guess just on this topic, there's immediately one that jumps to mind. There's this guy that I'd actually known for a little bit. I worked with him in the past, and he had his own business. He had some sales marketing background, but he was kind of just, I'll say, struggling for lack of a better word. It was
Yeah,
up and down, and yeah, I think most of us who've been in business have experienced that, and
yeah,
he's
yeah.
feeling a little
Not
stuck.
thriving, not
Yeah.
thriving.
Yes. And so we talked. He joined our program, and then I remember interviewing him. I think it was 4 months or so after, and so his kind of low point was maybe like 4K per month. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and he said he topped out at 15K per month. And
Mm-hmm.
he did that in about 6 weeks, which is, I have to admit, is fast. Like, you
Yeah,
don't
it's
see most people
impressive.
go that fast, but
Yeah.
for him, just because this is very on topic, I remember him saying one of the biggest reasons was because of the clarity that we helped him find.
Mm-hmm.
And it was because we just gave him a direction, we gave him some clear, we in our program we start with a niche, just to, even if you already have one, we still want to make sure,
Yeah.
does it check all the boxes? Are you
Yeah.
fighting an uphill battle? Like, does this make sense? Um, and once he had that, we also, I mean, I used to implement CRM systems for people, so I just built one.
Yeah.
It's very simple, and we give people a copy of that. And he's like, that's I, the majority of what I needed. And he just needed that accountability, a direction. He said that he just became a dog with a bone, and he used our approach.
Yeah.
It's called the authentic outreach, is kind of the core component of it. And he said the irony here is he had focused his attention, and a lot of people are scared to do that because they don't want to lose out on
Mm-hmm.
opportunities. But by the end of this call, he was just saying how many opportunities just came out of the woodworks for him, not even from clients, but outside of his, like other business opportunities. And
Yeah.
it's just this weird, again, when you embody that,
Yeah.
it opens up
Yeah.
so many doors. And he said he could have kept going, but his now wife, they just had their first son, said, "Do you need more?" And he was like, "No." So he lives in Portugal now, and
Yeah.
he would usually stop by 2 p.m. to and go surf. And that was that's
Oh, I
I thought that
love
was so cool. That's his that's I just think that it's the choice, it's the freedom. Like
yeah.
that's what really
Yeah.
lights me up, is to
Well,
give
that's
people.
freedom. That's freedom. Yeah. And I call it financial freedom, but it's the financial freedom because money is usually the thing that holds people back. And so financial freedom isn't like millions of dollars in the bank. It's the ability to make choices that you've otherwise said you couldn't make because of the money.
Yeah.
And so that's, yeah, it's my description. And it's that if you want to stop at 2 p.m. and go surfing, or you want to live in Portugal, or you want what, I mean, it's your life. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. I enjoyed chatting with you. And so what are one or two things, Riley, on any of the stuff that we chatted about that you'd love people to walk away with?
The dull pencil. I'll go with that one. Focus. And it's easier said than done, but I think that's where, anybody in the coaching space, most of them would probably argue that you could also use a coach. Like, we all need help. It's okay
Mhm.
to ask for it. Um, and so the accountability and whatever you need to do to be able to focus. And the other, I don't know if it'll hit for people hearing it, but I guess it goes back to that quote of like, you have to find a way to enjoy the journey or the process. And it does not mean that your life is just rainbows and sparkles. That's not what it means. It just means that you can appreciate, and I don't even like using the word happiness, but it's more of this, it's almost like peace. It's just a sense of being, I don't know, fulfillment,
Mhm,
purpose.
mhm,
Uh,
mhm,
everyone probably has their own word for it, but it's just embracing that. And uh, the the actionable tip that connects to that would be, it's another one of our lessons. And this actually comes from, it's called The Confidence Gap by
mhm.
Russell Harris, I think is the author's name.
I've heard of the book.
Dr. Russ Harris. And yeah, it's mostly based on ACT, acceptance and commitment therapy,
Mhm.
which is related to CBT. But putting all that aside, the main lesson here is it talks about the waiting place. And we were talking about taking action before.
Mhm.
So if you're not taking action, it might be because you're not focused or you don't have clarity. And we just talked about that. But one of the ways to get there, even without the clarity, is to take action. And there's this idea that confidence, we think of it as this feeling and this like, I feel confident. But if you look at the root of the word and you trace it back, it actually was more tied to action. It's like you would act with confidence. And
Mhm.
so if you look at the two different definitions, what you actually find is that in reality, confidence, the action, will always precede confidence, the feeling. And that's one of the main lessons we have
Mhm.
inside of our program, is to really drill that down, because
Mhm.
it means you have to take action even when you don't
Mhm.
feel confident. And then when you look back, you'll have the clarity and the confidence.
Mhm.
And so I'll put a pin in it there. Those are the two things.
Yeah, thank you. There's a couple things. One of them is I went through an emotional intelligence boot camp that was like 8 days. So it was like a 3-day stint, and then there was a couple week break, and then we went back for 5. It was intense. This was back
Yeah.
in like 2000, maybe early 2000s. So it was a long time ago when that wasn't a thing. I mean, it was like,
That was
yeah,
new. Who? Yeah. Who?
yeah. Ron,
You know?
it's Ron, it was Ron Wu. I think he may have passed away. But it was intense. I mean, the people aren't, I mean, it was serious stuff. Um, and I'm a bullet point person. So I'll take nuggets, right, with bullet points. And one of the things that came out of that was face your fears and do it anyway.
Yeah.
So part of the stuff that stops us from action that you're talking about is that fear of fill in the blank. I mean, any number of fears. I'm gonna look stupid. I could fail. People are gonna laugh at me. I could, whatever, all the stuff. But what you just talked about with confidence is on the other side of doing the thing, right? So you've got to step in, have the courage, and then all of a sudden it's like, been there, done that, bring it on. But I wouldn't be doing what I do today. I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be in front of, audiences doing leadership development, speaking gigs, whatever you want to call it, had I not stepped in and faced my fears and done it anyway when I had the opportunity to be the speaker for the undergraduate class of my graduating class, scared to death to where my legs were going to collapse from underneath me. That's how I was in public speaking. But I look back on that stuff and it's true. You step through that, you acknowledge it and go, whew, I know, okay, let's do it. And it took several of those for me to get to where I was. But it's like that doesn't exist anymore. None of that fear, it doesn't. Plenty of other things cause me to go, oh no. But you're absolutely right. It's like confidence is stepping in to do it. And I'm going to say it's the other C word of courage. Okay. And when we step in with that, then we step out with knowing that we lived through it. It wasn't near as bad as we thought it was going to be, and we do have confidence for the next thing that comes along.
Yeah. We're not as fragile as,
No,
like,
no,
yeah.
no, world didn't fall away. We all lived. People actually complimented us on whatever it was. In my case, the speech, people laughed at the right time, even though I, don't have a lot of memories of it. Yes, yes. 7 to 10 minute written speech when I'm a bullet point person. And there was no chat GPT to help fill in the blank.
Yeah, that it's crazy to think that that's really not that old, but it's come a long way. But
Yeah,
yeah, I like the courage twist on it as well, because
yeah.
yeah, the fear is there,
Mm-hmm. It's
whatever the
real.
thing is. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate the time. You're welcome back anytime you feel that you want to come back and chat. I would love to chat with you. So this has been Leadership Soundbites. Please like, share, subscribe. And on behalf of Riley and Michelle, have a freaking awesome day. Thank you.